The cameras exploded in flashes as Karoline Leavitt stepped onto the red carpet, her dress a sleek, timeless cut that didn't beg for attention, it demanded it. No fake smiles, no empty waves, just the sharp presence of someone who knew exactly who she was and didn't care who couldn't handle it. Beside her, Daniel Whitmore moved with quiet precision, his dark suit crisp, his face calm. Together, they sliced through the glittering crowd like a silent storm. Heads turned. Some whispered. A few pretended not to stare, pretending harder not to envy. The air tightened as they passed. Hollywood's favorite playground had just been given a reminder that real power wasn't loud or drunk on itself. In the distance, Ryan Reynolds worked the room laughing too loud, throwing handshakes like confetti, a glass of champagne already. Half gone in his hand, the king of casual mockery, already buzzing, already building his next punchline. The MC's voice cracked over the speakers, too chipper to be trusted. Before we kick off tonight's charity auction, folks, a little fun, a light-hearted roast. Let's get those laughs going. Karoline's eyes locked on the stage, her lips pressed into a line sharp enough to cut. She knew exactly where this was heading. The ballroom pulsed under crystal chandeliers, a golden glow bathing the sea of tuxedos and designer gowns. Laughter bubbled at every table as servers whisked away silver-domed plates. In the center of it all, Ryan Reynolds bounced onto the small raised stage, glass of champagne in one hand, microphone in the other. The perfect picture of careless charm. He winked at the crowd, letting the room settle before flashing a grin wide enough to melt any pretense of formality. A few women near the stage giggled, the cameras flashed wildly, every phone tilted up, to capture what everyone hoped would be another viral Ryan moment. All right, let's get this train wreck moving, he joked, voice easy, rhythm practiced. The first few jokes landed harmlessly, a jab at an A-lister's latest box office flop, a tease about a social media influencer's charity yoga tour. Each punchline smoothed the room like butter. Rich laughter flowed, champagne glasses clinked, safe, comfortable, fun. But then Ryan's eyes darted to the front table, the one no one else had dared to mock. Karoline and Daniel sat apart from the crowd's noisy swirl, a picture of poised stillness, his smile twisted, something sharper slipping through. And here we have Karoline Leavitt, he began, pausing just long enough to draw all eyes forward. The woman who somehow convinced America that politics should be run like a strict Catholic school. Light laughter flickered through the crowd, uneasy, thinner. Ryan's gaze flicked toward Daniel, who sat unmoving, his expression unreadable. Ryan leaned into the mic, a glint in his eye. And her husband, Daniel Whitmore. I guess she needed a bodyguard with abs to match the fear factor, huh? A ripple of chuckles, a few snorts. Someone clapped awkwardly in the back. Karoline didn't move. Her hands rested lightly on her lap, fingers perfectly still. Daniel's jaw tightened ever so slightly, the only visible crack in the armor. Ryan felt the tension but mistook it for momentum. He pressed harder, smirking. No, seriously, if Tinder for Patriots was a thing, these two would be the poster couple. Swipe right if you love lecturing strangers and firing warning shots at lawn signs. This time, the laughter stumbled. Some guests tittered nervously. Others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A few heads turned toward Karoline, waiting, wondering if she would crack, if she would rise and storm out like a bad cliché. She didn't. Instead, she leaned in toward Daniel. Her lips moved, a whisper only for him. Whatever she said didn't reach the crowd but the flash in Daniel's eyes. The slight loosening of his fists spoke louder than words. Whispers buzzed across the ballroom like static. Phones lifted discreetly above centerpieces. Tweets began firing into the void. Ryan roasting politicians now. Daniel Whitmore looks ready to deck Ryan Reynolds. OMG, this just got awkward fast. Ryan paced the stage, pretending not to notice the murmurs. His charm act stumbled, the boyish grin slipping slightly as he grasped for another punchline that wouldn't come. At their table, Karoline remained an island of stillness, not a flinch, not a flicker. The media lenses trained on her face caught no blush of anger, no flash of indignation, only that quiet, unnerving control. The stakes twisted tighter. Karoline understood the game. She had played it before. If she rose now, if she fired back. Too soon, she would be painted as thin-skinned, humorless, a walking headline. Karoline can't take a joke, but if she said nothing. The jokes, the jabs, the jeers, they would calcify into something more dangerous, a lasting stain, a weapon to be replayed and reshared every time she dared to speak with authority again. The silence stretched, a taut wire strung across the ballroom. She weighed the risks, the rewards, the stakes beyond tonight's glitter and noise. She didn't glance at Daniel again. She didn't need to. His steady presence at her side was the only answer she required. She would not be baited. She would choose her strike, and when it landed, it would not just silence a room. It would burn through every lie the stage could throw at them. The air in the ballroom had shifted. No longer playful, no longer light. Ryan sensed it too, the invisible crack in the room's energy, sharp and spreading. But ego is a hungry beast, and tonight, Ryan fed it willingly. "Come on, Karoline," he teased, gesturing grandly with his glass, forcing the spotlight even harsher onto her. "Don't leave me hanging. Tell us what's it like being the national spokesperson for Bring Back the 1950s. A few weak chuckles sputtered from the crowd, dying almost instantly. People sipped faster, eyes darting between each other, waiting, bracing. A whisper ran through the velvet-draped room, not loud, but present enough to chill the air. Karoline rose, smooth, effortless, a single motion like a blade slipping free from its sheath. She didn't adjust her dress, didn't fix her hair. She didn't need the armor most people grab for when put on public trial. She had built her armor years ago, not from fabric or jewels, but from fire. Daniel stood too, not looming protectively, not blocking, simply rising beside her, a silent wall of support. The cameras clicked into overdrive. Ryan froze for half a beat, not enough for the audience to catch it, but enough for Karoline to see. His body stiffened, just slightly. His hand gripped the microphone tighter. Good, she thought. Let him feel it. She moved toward the stage heels, clicking against marble with a rhythm so steady it cut through the awkward coughs and shifting chairs. Every eye followed her, every breath held. Ryan, cornered, but unwilling to retreat, extended the mic toward her like an olive branch or a dare. She took it and smiled, not the brittle, plastic smile women are taught to flash when humiliated. No, hers was slow, deliberate, the kind of smile that said, "You made a mistake inviting me up here, a mistake you can't take back." "Thank you, Ryan," she said, voice clear and light as glass. "Really, it's so brave of you to pick on someone with different views. Very Hollywood of you." The first rupture hit the room, a short, sharp burst of laughter. Real laughter, not forced. Ryan's grin faltered, but he tried to recover. Lifting his champagne in mock salute, Karoline didn't give him time. "You know, it's funny you brought up the 1950s, she continued, pacing the stage like she owned it. "Because back then, guys like you still had to actually work to be respected. Charm wasn't enough. You had to have spine. Another ripple through the crowd, this one sharper, more dangerous. Some people actually gasped." Ryan opened his mouth to reply, but Karoline waved a hand, cutting him off effortlessly, as if he were a student interrupting a professor. "And I'm sure you meant it all in good fun," she said sweetly. "Because making fun of women who work in politics, women who don't just pose for cameras but actually move policy, who actually shape culture, that's hilarious, right?" Silence. A few heads in the crowd turned toward the VIP tables where studio executives and political donors sat stiff and uncomfortable. Karoline's voice dipped lower, not louder, but sharper. "Or maybe it's just easy. Maybe it's easier to punch down than admit you're scared. Scared that some of us aren't asking permission anymore." The words struck like a whip. Ryan's smile collapsed entirely now, leaving a strained mask. The energy shifted again, but this time toward her. The audience leaned in, the way you lean toward fire on a cold night. Karoline paused. Let the silence expand. Let the words settle, like ash, and then finally she handed the mic back to Ryan. Not thrown, not dropped, offered, a mercy. He took it slower this time, smaller, and for the first time all night, Ryan Reynolds looked human, shrinking instead of shining. Karoline turned, heel pivoting cleanly against marble, and walked back toward her table, the queen returning to her throne after reminding everyone why thrones exist in the first place. The applause didn't come all at once. It started with a few claps, awkward, hesitant. Then it built a wave crashing forward, growing louder, bolder, until it became something real. Some people stood, some whistled, some pounded their glasses against the tables. And for the first time that night, it wasn't Ryan who owned the room. It was Karoline. But the night wasn't over. Victory had a strange scent, intoxicating, but dangerous. Because power attracts attention, and not all attention is applause. As Karoline settled back into her chair, Daniel leaned in, voice low against the roar of the crowd. "That was risky," he murmured. "You just embarrassed their golden boy in front of half of Hollywood." Karoline sipped her water calmly, her pulse steady. "Good," she said. "Let them remember it." Across the room, Ryan was cornered now not by Karoline, but by the faces he pretended didn't matter. Studio heads, political donors, the people who fund the illusions. Their smiles were tight, their conversations clipped. He had violated an unspoken rule. You can be funny, you can be edgy, but you cannot lose control. And he had lost it spectacularly in front of witnesses. Someone whispered something into Ryan's ear. His face paled. Karoline watched without blinking. Not gloating, just observing. She understood how these rooms worked. Charm was currency here. Respect was oxygen. Lose one, and the other vanished fast. Another producer, a heavy hitter, leaned over to the organizer's table, whispering rapidly. Within minutes, a new plan was unfolding. A second MC was brought in, a safer one. Bland. Uncontroversial. Ryan's mic was quietly retired for the night. The symbolism was brutal. Daniel nudged Karoline again, softer this time. "You shook the hive," he said. "Be ready." She smiled without humor. "I was born ready." And she had to, because Ryan wasn't the only one who noticed the shift. From the far side of the ballroom, other figures began moving: publicists, journalists, even rivals. Some approached cautiously, smiling like wolves in borrowed tuxedos. Others hovered, uncertain whether to align or attack. One reporter from a major network, CNN's entertainment division, no less, slipped into the chair beside Karoline, recorder in hand, pretending casualness. "Hey, Karoline," she chirped. "Loved your speech, really inspired stuff. Mind answering a few questions?" Translation: "You're trending now. We smell blood. Let's see if you'll bleed for the cameras." Karoline tilted her head, pretending to consider. "Actually," she said, voice sweet as poison, "I do mind." The reporter blinked, caught off guard. By the refusal in this town, you were supposed to always say yes when the cameras circled. You were supposed to beg for the attention. Karoline smiled wider, enjoying the confusion. "I'm not here to give you a story," she added. "I am the story." And with that she turned away, dismissing the reporter with nothing more than a glance. More murmurs, more shifting alliances. Karoline understood what was happening now. The room was recalibrating. In Hollywood, in politics, the hierarchy was a living thing. It bent toward heat, toward power, toward whoever could make the ground tremble most. Tonight, Karoline had made it tremble, and now the courtiers were choosing sides. Some would resent her fiercely. Others would court her desperately. Both were dangerous. Daniel picked up on it too. He stood now, straightening his jacket, scanning the room like a bodyguard at a royal court. "We should move," he said. Karoline nodded, rising gracefully. The applause was dying down now, replaced by an uneasy buzz, the sound of sharks circling deeper waters. As they made their way toward the exits, they passed Ryan, still frozen in conversation with two grim-faced producers. For a fleeting second, his eyes met hers. No words, no gestures, but the look was unmistakable. Anger, humiliation, and something darker underneath. A promise. This wasn't over. Karoline knew it too. When you humiliate a king in public, he doesn't forgive. He plots. Daniel opened the door for her, shielding her from a photographer who tried to shove a camera in her face. Outside, the cool air slapped her skin, clearing the last of the ballroom's sticky tension. She inhaled sharply. Alive, aware, victorious but wary. This was no longer just a political fight. It was personal now, and personal wars don't end. Neatly, they sprawl, they scar, and they always demand a higher price than you expect. Karoline walked toward the waiting car, spine straight, head high. Inside the ballroom, the war drums had already started beating. But outside, under the ruthless Hollywood stars, Karoline Leavitt smiled to herself, a smile not of satisfaction, but of readiness. Let them come. She was ready to burn their entire empire down if she had to. The city smelled like gasoline and ambition that night. Karoline's car cut through the Los Angeles streets like a blade. Inside, the air was tight, electric. Daniel sat beside her, his jaw clenched, scrolling his phone furiously. "It's everywhere," he muttered. "Leavitt, lights up, trending worldwide. Ryan's meltdown, your shutdown. Clips from the ballroom are blowing up TikTok, Instagram, even LinkedIn." Karoline didn't respond. Immediately, she stared out the window, watching the neon blur into rivers of red and gold. She had expected backlash. She had expected attacks. She hadn't expected the speed. Daniel tossed his phone into his lap. "And Ryan's camp is retaliating. Fast. They're spinning it hard, claiming you ambushed him, manipulated the narrative. Bullied him." Karoline finally turned, voice ice calm. "Let them." Daniel hesitated. "There's more. He's calling a press conference." That got her attention. "When?" she asked. 30 minutes. The Beverly Regent Hotel." Karoline smiled, a slow, dangerous smile. "Perfect." Daniel looked at her like she was mad. "Karoline, listen, you already won the room. You don't need to escalate." "I'm not escalating," she said. "I'm finishing." The car screeched to a halt in front of the Regent. Lights blazed from every corner. Reporters swarmed the sidewalk like vultures, shouting into cameras, jostling for position. The news cycle was spinning, so fast it threatened to collapse in on itself. Karoline stepped out, flashing cameras freezing her every move. She moved like she belonged there, not just in the spotlight, but owning it. She was no longer the outsider crashing their party. She was the storm they hadn't seen coming. Daniel chased after her, muttering, "We should be careful. They'll try to frame you as the aggressor." Karoline didn't even glance at him. "I'm not the aggressor," she said. "I'm the reckoning." Inside, the hotel ballroom was a different battlefield. Ryan stood at a podium under the glinting chandeliers, a line of handlers flanking him. His face was waxy. Under the lights, a smile stretched tight and wrong across his features. The press conference was supposed to be a cleanup job, a quick pivot back to victimhood, reasserting control over the narrative. But the second Karoline entered the room, the oxygen shifted. Every camera swung toward her, every head turned. The murmur of reporters rose into a wave. Ryan's expression flickered, just for a heartbeat into pure panic. Karoline didn't wait for an invitation. She strode straight to the front, heels clicking like gunshots against the marble floor. She planted herself in full view of the cameras, arms folded, daring anyone to move her. The moderator, a sweating PR man, stumbled over his words. We'll be taking questions after Mr. Ryan's prepared statement." Karoline tilted her head, all sweetness. "Or," she said, voice cutting through the room, "we could skip the lies and get to the part where he explains why he tried to humiliate a woman at a charity event." The reporters exploded. Shouts, flashes, A dozen recorders shoved forward. Ryan's face darkened. "Ms. Leavitt," he said, voice tight. "This is highly inappropriate." "So was you using a charity stage to launch a personal attack?" she said, stepping closer. "You tried to embarrass me in front of donors, cameras, and colleagues. You failed, and now you're trying to play the victim?" Ryan's hands curled into fists at his sides. "I was making a joke." "No, Ryan," she said sharply, voice ringing against the crystal chandeliers. "You were trying to remind a woman that no matter how successful she is, no matter how prepared, how professional, she's still a punchline to men like you." The room was dead silent now. Every word was being broadcast live. Every pause was being analyzed in real time by a bloodthirsty internet. Ryan tried to recover, smirking weakly. "Are you seriously accusing me of sexism over a joke?" Karoline took another step forward, reducing the space between them until he had to lean back slightly. "I'm accusing you," she said, slow and surgical, "of being part of a system that punishes women for daring to be smarter, sharper, tougher than the men around them. And when they refuse to shrink to fit your expectations, you mock them. You call it humor. I call it cowardice." A low gasp rippled through the reporters. Ryan looked to his handlers desperately, but they were frozen, watching the disaster unfold. Karoline wasn't finished. "You thought you could define me in front of a crowd? You thought you could turn me into a meme? A cautionary tale. Instead, you turned yourself into a warning. And let me be crystal clear, I am not here to play nice. I am not here to soothe egos. I am here to win." The room erupted. Reporters shouted questions over each other. Cameramen jostled. For a better angle, microphones were thrust toward Karoline like offerings to a queen. Ryan's team tried to shut it down, calling for order, threatening to end the conference. But it was too late. Karoline had seized the narrative by the throat, and the world was watching. Ryan stumbled away from the podium, trying to retreat into the crowd, but even there, the cameras followed him like wolves circling a wounded deer. Daniel appeared at Karoline's side, breathless. "We should go, before they twist it." She shook her head. "Let them try." They exited the ballroom together, flashbulbs chasing them into the night. Outside, under the sharp Los Angeles sky, Karoline allowed herself one moment of stillness, one moment to feel the ground shifting under her feet, not crumbling, but rising. She hadn't just defended herself. She had rewritten the rules of engagement. No more shrinking, no more appeasement, no more fake smiles for men who believed they owned the narrative. The war was on now. But this time, Karoline Leavitt wasn't fighting for survival. She was fighting for dominance, and she was just getting started. The morning after felt different. Karoline stood on the balcony of her hotel suite, coffee cooling in her hand, as the city stretched and blinked awake below her. From 30 floors up, the chaos seemed smaller, manageable, even beautiful in a brutal sort of way. Her phone buzzed. For the 1,000th time, Daniel, again. "You're officially viral," he said, his voice vibrating with a mix of awe and exhaustion. "Every major outlet is running your confrontation with Ryan. Fox News is praising you. CNN is dissecting you. Even The View is planning a full segment about you." Karoline smiled faintly. "Good. Let them." But Daniel's tone shifted, cautious. "There's fallout too. You've rattled some big cages. There's talk of certain donors backing out, invitations being rescinded. Some Hollywood execs are privately calling you difficult and unpredictable." Karoline sipped her coffee, slowly considering. "So?" she said finally. Daniel laughed, disbelieving. "Karoline, they're scared of you." She set the cup down, turning to face the skyline. The morning sun threw sharp shadows across the rooftops, slicing the city into gold and gray. "Good," she said again, this time with steel behind it. It wasn't just about Ryan anymore. It wasn't about a petty insult or a viral video. It was about something bigger, about daring to break the unspoken contracts that kept women in line. Smile, nod, play nice, lose with grace, win with apology. Karoline Leavitt had done neither. The calls started rolling in faster now. Offers, interviews, speaking engagements, brands wanting partnerships, political organizations floating the idea of future runs, Congress, governor, even national platforms. Each call, each email, each knock on the door was proof. She hadn't just survived the fire, she had become it. Later that afternoon, Karoline sat across from Daniel in a small cafe tucked into a side street. No cameras, no reporters, just the quiet hum of normal life. "You really sure about this?" Daniel asked, nursing his espresso. "This is the hard path, no safety nets, no going back." Karoline leaned back, arms crossed over her chest. "I didn't come this far to play it safe." He studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "All right." "Then," he said, "if you're ready for war, let's draw the battle lines." Across the street, a billboard blinked to life, one of those digital ones, constantly changing ads. For a fleeting second, it flashed a news headline: Karoline Leavitt, the woman who refused to bow. Karoline caught sight of her own face, fierce and unyielding against a backdrop of flashing lights. She smiled. A real one this time. Not for the cameras, not for the optics, for herself. This was only the beginning. The real fight was just starting, and she wasn't afraid of the fallout. She was counting on it. Karoline and Daniel. Walk by the Lincoln Memorial. No flashbulbs, no noise. The cool evening air. Wrapped around them as Karoline and Daniel strolled past the Lincoln Memorial. There were no cameras chasing them now, no reporters yelling questions, just the quiet whisper of history in the marble columns, the steady beating of their own hearts. It was a rare kind of peace, the kind that only comes after surviving a storm. Karoline looked up at Lincoln's statue, bathed in soft light, and for once, she didn't feel the weight of 100 judgments pressing down on her. She simply felt alive. Karoline reflects. It's not about winning moments. As they walked, Karoline's mind wandered back to the confrontation, to the clapping, the shifting stares, the silent moments of realization that had rippled through that crowded room. It wasn't about winning the room, she thought. Not really. It was about standing for something when it mattered most. It was about fighting not for applause, but for truth. Even when truth made the world uncomfortable. Even when it made you uncomfortable. Daniel's quiet pride. You made them see. Daniel didn't say much. He never did in moments like this. But the way he looked at her, a small knowing smile tugging at the corner of his mouth, said everything. You made them see. His eyes told her. You didn't back down. You didn't let them write your story. She smiled back. A silent exchange of gratitude passing between them. Deeper than any words. They walk into the sunset. Ready for bigger battles. Ahead, hand in hand, they moved forward, the dying light casting long shadows behind them. Tomorrow, the battles would begin again, louder, harder, more ruthless. But tonight, they allowed themselves a moment of quiet victory. A moment to breathe. A moment to believe that maybe, just maybe, they were built for something bigger than anyone ever gave them credit for.